So this week we're going to talk about insecurities. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about how they're created, and then also how they can actually affect your future relationships, right? So insecurities, right? I think for insecurities can be created in a numerous amount of ways, right? And sometimes over time, if insecurities aren't addressed, they get subsequently worse, right? And then sometimes you don't really know the ramifications of how those types of things can affect your life in general. So for me, I think insecurities can be created. I would say one way an insecurity can be created is by the way that you may grow up, right? Like sometimes, to me, and this is an example, sometimes parents, right? Like sometimes the way that you direct your kids can create small insecurities for them. Therefore, they grow up with certain insecurities, and then they put those insecurities into the world with them, right? But that's just one way of looking at it, right? But how do you guys think the other insecurities are created?
Media, what you see on TV, comparing yourself to what you see on TV, what you hear in music, what you are exposed to, by society, depending on your culture. So that would be another way. Pretty much just anything that you're exposed to.
Yeah. Okay.
No, that's true.
So do you think relationships can create insecurities?
Yes. Relationships can create insecurities, but what I've found is majority of the time they had an insecurity before they even get in the relationship.
Okay. That's a true statement. But in that same instance though, if a person has insecurities before they enter into a relationship or a situation, like a relationship. Oh, well, I'll save that part. I want to really tackle how those issues are addressed, those insecurities are addressed once you get there. But I feel like that's going to be a bigger conversation. I feel like that's going to be a bigger conversation. So let's talk a little bit more about how insecurities are created, though, right? Like how do insecurities manifest themselves, right?
Yeah, I also say, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, in addition to what Aphrodite said, the opposite is true as well. A person can be, cannot have any insecurities at all when they're in a relationship, and then being in that relationship creates the insecurities. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times that's kind of what happens.
Yeah, that happens more often than not.
Yeah. So, I guess even with, insecurities, would you say that, I don't know, I was going to go something like that, but I think insecurities for the most part, right? Like, do you think that, the way that a person looks at themselves or self-image could be a part of insecurities too? Like your way that you view yourself, that part of an insecurity too? Right?
Yeah.
The way you see yourself.
Lacking confidence in who you are and your value, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's basically just you creating that insecurity for yourself. Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it
What's wrong? What's wrong?
I don't know. I was looking at Aphrodite. Aphrodite, you're so funny, man. Like you are.
I'm like, what's wrong?
Oh, it's funny because it's just something. I think it was like I was looking at you and Nrgy was talking, and then your response, and then I was laughing again. So back to the insecurity thing. All right, so
Jason.
What? I'm having fun today. It's pretty funny. So insecurities, right? So typically it's not another person's, I guess, job to help someone else with their insecurities, right?
Right.
But for the most part, especially when I guess people start living life and living relationships and stuff like that, why does it always seem like it is the other person's job to help them with insecurities? You know what I'm saying? Like help someone else with their insecurities. Like why does it seem like that?
Well, I think how can I put this? I don't know if, well, I guess they do seem like, I guess you need to know see, sometimes we just have this thing where we feel like we can fix it. I'm trying to get it right.
She moved 3 different ways. It's like, well, let me.
People, like people really feel like they can fix people, right?
Yeah.
People have a mentality that they can fix the person.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it comes into play when it comes down to you feeling like you can help them with their insecurity. But the thing about it, if they don't want to even address their insecurities themselves, it's nothing you can do as who you are. Because the ultimate decision is for that particular person to address it.
Yeah.
I think it's because we have a mentality that we can fix. Some people have a mentality that they can fix people. I think that's what it is.
Yeah. But why do you think people have that mentality, though? Did you think that you can fix another person? Why do you think that people might have that mentality?
Maybe they thought I don't know. I don't know why they mess. I don't know. Nrgy, why? Tell the people. I don't know.
That was your statement.
See? No, she wouldn't go. She wasn't going to go with that. Okay, so what would you say then? Okay, what would you say?
What was the question?
Why do you think that people might want to help another person with their insecurity?
Got it. Especially when you're talking about relationships, you come into a relationship with that partnership type of, feeling and camaraderie. So to me, it can kind of seem like it's part of the process. It's part of what we do. Like we help each other out, no matter what it is, no matter what area, what topic of life it is, even if it's not, even if it's financial or, spiritual, or if it's something internal within a person. I think it's because when it comes to relationships, the two people that are involved, they have this sense of, well, I'm not leaving you behind. We support each other. When I'm weak, you're strong. And when, when I'm strong, when you're weak, I'm strong type of thing, to kind of help balance each other out in order to just help the relationship overall as a whole. And, when you care about somebody, you want to see them improve. You want to help them improve. So I don't believe there's anything wrong with it to a degree, but I do believe that can play a part in why, it seems as if one person has to help fix the other person.
Yeah. Yeah, that love factor. I tell you, when you love somebody, hey, you want to see the best for them. You want to try to do the best you can to help them, and
yeah,
that's true.
Especially from the woman's perspective, like being nurturers, that's kind of natural to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
For most, not all, but for most.
Right. That's so true.
Yeah. All right. So, like, what I was really saying was sometimes when I guess you're in love with someone and you want the best for them, you want them to be better, you want them to be different. Sometimes when they have that insecurity, that strong insecurity, you want to try to fix it. But I think that sometimes when you try to fix it subsequently just makes the situation worse. But I think that love has a big part of that sometimes whenever you're trying to help that person. I think love is the reason why you want to try to change that with that person. Like you want to help that person because you love them, because you want the best for them. But do you think that just because you love somebody or that you're in love with somebody that you can fix the insecurity part? Like, do you think that that's possible? Or is like that just kind of goes along with it?
No, I don't think that you ultimately, as being the outsider, have, all the power to fix someone else's insecurity. I do believe that you can help, assist, that you can play a big role in helping them help themselves. But ultimately, the insecurity itself has to be addressed or taken care of by the person who owns the insecurity.
Right.
Well, I'm gonna pull one of Emmanuel's favorite lines. What if they don't know that they have the insecurity?
We're not doing it.
It's like they know, but they don't know. It's like they address it, but they don't want to get it. I mean, is that fair? Like that's what you would say down there? They may not know they had that insecurity, right?
True. Yeah. I mean, that's anything. That's why with so many of the personal development steps that we've talked about throughout this entire podcast channel, the first step in a lot of things is awareness. If a person is not aware of there being a thing or there being an issue, they don't know to fix it. They don't know to seek help. They don't know to change it because it hasn't been brought to their attention yet to where they have been awakened by it. So awareness is a big thing. And yeah, what if they don't know? Then it's going to take some more time before they actually start working on it because they don't know that it's an issue. They don't know that they have it. And that's just going to, take some more time until that person gets to a point of where their eyes are opened by something or someone eventually.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that trust issues is an insecurity?
Yes.
I'm just saying, would that be considered an insecurity or?
It depends. That's one of those, it depends. Go ahead, Emmanuel, I'm sorry.
I was just saying it can be. It stems from, I guess, where it came from, right? So was this insecurity here prior to you beginning the relationship with the person? Or was it triggered due to some events that transpired while you were in a relationship with this person? So now those events have led you to be a bit insecure on future behaviors that may or may not be happening. So it just depends. Sometimes people bring that into the relationship from a prior relationship, and sometimes events within a current relationship affect someone, deeply enough to where now going forward, there's an insecurity when it comes to whether or not you can trust a person or not.
Well said, right? Man.
Yes, exactly. It depends. All trust issues are not an insecurity within that person. That's one of the things that annoy me the most. People throw around, this person is insecure or you're insecure. Well, first of all, before labeling that person as being insecure when it comes to a trust issue, determine if they actually have a legitimate reason for having an issue with trusting this person. And if that's the case, then it's not a trust issue. Because if they have a legit reason, just like Emmanuel was giving the example of, then they don't have an issue with trusting. It's literally just that situation with that person, and it's very valid. So that's something that annoys me. People use that term and they throw it around loosely, and they don't really decide or dig deep enough to see first before just calling someone insecure. Where is it coming from first? Is it legit or is it something that's just irrational?
Yeah. I mean, that's numerous reasons why people don't dig deeper on that, from that whole standpoint, right? That's extra work. You got to dig a little deeper on why a person may feel the way that they do, and that's hard sometimes from a relationship standpoint for most people, because depending on the situation, sometimes you only see your part. Yeah, right. Like sometimes you see your part in it, but you don't see all of your part, right? Like you see the stuff that you want to see sometimes, right? But you don't see the stuff that may be affecting the other person, right? So that's like a person that goes to work for 8 hours, right? And they work their 8-hour shift, right? And they supposed to get off at like 5, but they don't come home to 7. What happened the other couple hours there that you happened to not show up there, right? Like then that could potentially create an issue if there's not enough information in between. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like seriously, because that's what happens with most people. Like, it's like, especially depending on the relationship. If you have like kids and all these other obligations and stuff like that, a person is kind of waiting on you to actually get home per se. But if all you see is the fact that I'm getting home or whatever the case may be, and miss out the rest of that part, that can create an issue, right?
Yeah.
I think it's rooted in consistent inconsistency.
Right. So I wouldn't think it's just one incident. I would have to think that they did that consistently.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where the insecurity.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that's how the insecurity would sit in, like, where you been, what you been doing, you know, that time is unaccounted for type of conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And most times that's kind of how it happens. It starts small and then you get the build up. Like, okay, it's 2 hours now, but then it turns into 4. Like, okay, like, where's this extra time? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But again, that's just a small example of, you know, that bigger issue there when it comes to like insecurities. But I think that with insecurities sometimes too, from an individual standpoint, sometimes it's hard for people to address their own stuff, like their own stuff. So if you know for a fact that, you know, before you put yourself into a situation that you have to connect yourself with another person, and you know that you may have some issues rolling around in there, like some real issues, and I mean, you don't say anything, you don't bring it up, the other person don't know anything about it. It's like, whose fault is that at that point? Like, is it the person that you with, or it's kind of like, or is it still the person still needs to hold themselves accountable? Something like that.
They still should have to hold themselves accountable. How could it be the person that you with when you came in with that? You know, they still should hold themselves accountable. It's about accountability. And if you're not going to be accountable for you knowing that you have those issues coming in, then how we know you're going to address them while you already in the relationship?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think you should come into the relationship with those issues if you can avoid it. Okay. Because those issues have nothing to do with the relationship that you're entering in most cases. Right. So I think that's already like a wall that's being created as you're starting a new relationship. So I think that's really important to try to kind of get over that wall before actually pursuing another relationship with another person who's going to be, who should be entering that relationship 100% all in, and you're kind of entering that relationship with reservations, essentially. Because insecurities tend to, a behavior that's kind of, a reserved behavior a lot of times.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I think that, to your point, I think that that's also part of the issue there too, is that nobody thinks about the things that they may have before entering into a relationship. You don't think about that part. Like, that part of it, most people don't think about that part. Like they think about everything else, right? Like who the person is, what they look like, what they do, the normal, tangible type stuff. But to really address your stuff, it takes a lot of self-reflection. Like you actually have to sit down with yourself and say, hey, am I ready for this? Like, is this something that I'm ready to do? Because if I'm not, why in the heck am I doing it? Like why am I taking this step?
Right.
And a lot of times when you ask yourself that, first thing that's gonna probably come out of your mouth is because I'm lonely.
Is what?
Lonely, like companionship, like companionship. That's it. Okay, like that's it. Like you see a whole bunch of people on social media booed up and stuff. You're like, okay, I need somebody like that too.
But it's the image that creates you feel like you lonely. Is those images you see everybody kissing or whatever the situation is. Like it's that type of stuff that can create a lonely feeling.
Yeah. But that means that you pack your bag all with the issues that you may have and you jump into that relationship knowing that you're not ready. Like you're not ready to get into the relationship with somebody else. You just get there and hope that it works out.
Reckless.
But if you really think about it, like that's kind of what happened.
Oh, yeah. That
happens a lot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, very.
It happens a lot.
Yeah, very, very unfortunate. Okay.
And sometimes you also find where some people they don't know how to be alone. That's why, they go from one relationship to another, to another, to another, to another, to another. They don't know how to be alone. Yeah. Or I don't know if it's them being afraid, because I've heard people say, well, they're afraid to be by themselves. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah. But, that's kind of the way things are. Sometimes okay, so the thing about being alone and being lonely is a little different because the only voice that you're hearing is your own. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes the biggest fear is you being by yourself and hearing that voice, like with what your thoughts are telling you, right? Like a lot of times people, make that type of decision because they don't want to just sit with themselves. They don't want to hear their own voice. Like that's a deep fear there. Like you don't know what that voice in your head is telling you, right? Like, especially if it's something negative. Like nobody wants to hear it. Like, that's my thought on that, right? Like I'm just thinking, hey, that might be it. But again, when it comes to like this topic that we're talking about, which is like insecurities and stuff like that, yeah, I mean, insecurities can be created from, a whole bunch of different avenues, a whole bunch of different ways and things like that. But I think the biggest thing is how can insecurities be addressed, right? Like, is there like a real direct approach to addressing insecurities, or is this one approach? Like, what do you say?
I think you can address insecurity many ways, but one thing is you have to know that you have that insecurity. You have to admit to the insecurity first.
Okay.
And then I think you also need to dig deeper to figure out, like, where is it coming from? Where did it stem from? It could be, like you stated earlier, it could be something in your childhood that you didn't realize that was placed in you until you start thinking about, like, where did this come from?
Yeah. I want to do that.
It's really tough to address an insecurity. Because oftentimes the person's unaware, or it's so sensitive of a topic that it's hard for them to receive it when it's brought to their attention. Especially if it's brought to their attention from the person who's created or who the insecurity stems from. So the person created the insecurity, or if this is the person that's feeling the effects of the person's insecurity, it's harder for that individual to address it, because whoever the person is who's insecure, they've got like a barrier up against that person to a degree when it comes to that insecurity. So normally, in my experience, I've found it helps if someone close to that person with the insecurity, whether it's family or a really close friend, helps them identify that it exists, because it's really difficult for the person who the insecurity stems from to do that. It's a real dicey business when it comes to just addressing someone else's insecurity, because a lot of times they don't even want to own up to it. It's like a pride, ego thing, or it's hard enough to get someone to own up to an insecurity, even if they know it exists, let alone acknowledging, fixing it, working towards all of that. It takes a lot of humility for someone to do that.
Okay. What you think, Nrgy? How about you? What you got, Nrgy? You got? I see you contemplating, so what you got?
You're silly. Definitely be mindful of as you were describing it earlier, Josh, but I'll just use the most commonly used term, emotional baggage, bringing the baggage in from one relationship to the next. Be mindful of that. In order to not do so, you do have to take time in between relationships, basically what Emmanuel was saying. You have to take time in order to heal before you jump into a new relationship, in order to figure out what could you have, what could have come on you, what new habits or new patterns or new thoughts that you may have created or whatever from your last relationship before going into your new relationship. If people will just be patient enough with and being accepting of being alone, and alone doesn't necessarily mean lonely, but if people will be accepting of being alone long enough, aka being patient before jumping into a new relationship, that will help alleviate a lot of the issues of dragging emotional baggage into the new relationship, or having these insecurities constantly piling up within that one person. Too many people are just rushing and jumping from one to the next, as Aphrodite was saying earlier. So for me, that's what I would suggest and say, like, even if you're not aware of it in that current relationship, or now that you're out of that relationship, if a person just takes enough time and spend that time with themselves in order to also just learn who they are, learn yourself, learn what your values are. Because if you have enough confidence within yourself, and if you know your values, that's going to also help alleviate the possibilities of these insecurities to start popping up. So that's pretty much what I would say in summary. This is Coach Nrgy. These are my thoughts, and I have parked my car on the side of 285.
Oh man, that's funny. Oh man. But yeah, that's the thing about insecurity, though, right? Like, that was good. I like that. But to add to that, though, I think that once a person figures out that they have the insecurity or something like that, I think that people should get to a point where it's okay to know that if you have an issue, you try to fix it yourself, you may need to invest in yourself, which is get help to fix that insecurity. Because a lot of times, I mean, depending on the person, I mean, you have something that you're dealing with. You ask people, what can you do? You probably talk to yourself, that, hey, what can I do? So you probably tried all these options, but to actually go out, find somebody that's like a professional to actually help you, that's scary for people. That's the hardest thing for people to do. Like, and I get the stigma around that. Like, I get it. But it's like, if you're on the internet and Google is everybody's best friend now, Like it's not hard to find like somebody just say, hey, I need this particular service. It's just taking the time to invest. Like you have to consider yourself and invest in yourself. But that's my story right there, and I guess I'm sticking to it. But part of the rest of this conversation, though, is that the biggest takeaway from what we're talking about with insecurities is that I want people to understand how it can affect your future.
Right.
Like it's not just about like yourself more than everybody that is affected along the way. Like that could be like kids, that could be family members, that can be potential partners, it can be all these people. So insecurities, no matter how you look at them, big or small, they just need to be addressed. Yep. Everybody agree?
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
Yes.
100% agree. Definitely need to be addressed.
Yeah. So I would say this is a great way to end this particular episode. You know, I think we got a lot of good feedback out of this. You know, a lot of good takeaways. So another great episode of Added Perspective with Josh. I'm Josh.
I'm Coach Nrgy.
I'm Aphrodite.
And I'm Emmanuel.
We out.